one person to review, adopt without consultation, and put into practice without a big helpful question. As an industry, we find ourselves in a position as a result of reviews that will be 28 days to complete. Yet it is our industry that has exported any sets just under 80 million since 2010, with a successful delivery rate of 99.2% for that period. How is 28 days justifiable in an industry with hundreds of millions of dollars in rural Western, rural and regional Australia, particularly WA? There is a need for balance and proportionality to remove bad practice and recognise good practice. As well as the improvements made, it is important that there is a common understanding that best practice regulation does not mean more regulation, but more effective and clearly defined regulation. How is the federal government made positioned to help our long-term trading partners, who now must be considering other options for supply, knowing that the Australian government has been dictated by NGO groups opposed not only to live export trade, but animal production as well. These groups are extremely well funded, and as you've all seen in the media, the exposure they have already. The live export market received a growing understanding of confidence in sheep production at all-time high. We saw a market for turkey that in last year we said 198,000 sheep, and this year we're on target for excess of 500,000 sheep. Because of our current circumstances coming out of the level they require, we can get the correct regulation and the confidence operating all once a year. This gives us certainty, along with providing you with the farm the same. Since the 31st year, we have completed 3 shipments to 2 different markets with 3 sets of different regulations. We were the first company to sail with an independent observer, a voyage with no restrictions and voyage lasted 25 days, success rate 99.6%. Our second voyage, the density was lower by 15%, a decision made in consultation with the regulator. An 80-day voyage, success rate 99.7%. Our last voyage, the first to leave Australia following a release from a McCarthy review, we loaded a density reduction of 32% at 25 days at sea, success rate of 99.75%. And whilst there are no excessive changes in success, the viability of this voyage was completely destroyed by the adoption of a review undertaken without thought and knee-jerk reaction by a minister to a whole industry on an actual issue. We are focusing on best practice and performance, getting the basics right, paying attention to detailed preparation. If these basics are right, we are clearly capable of being things. Similar to producers, no matter how well you prepare, the reality of working with livestock means sometimes you can fall below the bar and hit your own expectations. Does this happen to every vessel? No, it does not. And until this will be verified by independent observers, sanctioned by the McCarthy review. Additionally, such incidents were predictable, expected, unsurprising, wild reviews for you. The export industry is the frontier animal welfare movement. We care for animals. I don't think there is anyone here that doesn't. We accept that we are being judged, and only ask to be judged fairly and things put into context. The industry is much bigger than the Arabian Gulf. It's true, the majority of Australians should go there. We have long-term markets in Jordan, Israel, legally affected by these changes. We have growing markets in Turkey, Russia, representatives to Saudi, and we must be reliable and consistent supplier of livestock. We cannot be governed by populist views and minority. Our governments must govern in the best interest of the nation and its people, not how they seek the politics next election. Along with other articles and carcasses here in Australia, and blood buying and find a way to live in both. As many of you know, the shipping market is completely different to the domestic and export soil market, and whilst we kill an export land, the Dogo household will not consider buying a carcass on a Friday for family for weekend, nor would you take home a sheep and feed the other. We have a responsibility to restore our trading partners in trade with Australia, knowing the rules are not going to change and leaving with no food. That's something our contractors Life's always been a part of us